and we are starting off tonight with Triangle. Somewhat interesting plot. There's a group of friends, and by friends I mean some of them know each other, but some of them don't. They don't seem like much friends to me, but they go on a sort of a yachting trip, but then this freak storm happens. Boat sort of capsizes and they almost die, but they find a way to this seemingly deserted cruise ship. And once they're there, strange time loop things start happening, in which one of the women finds out that she herself is on the ship, and things happen. I mean, it's a pretty well-known movie. It's pretty popular, and honestly, it's pretty well respected. I genuinely see positive reviews for this one. I've only seen this one twice now. I watched it just earlier today. I'm not a personal fan of the movie. My main problem being I don't think it makes that much sense. I think the movie looks good. I think the plot's interesting. I just don't think it makes sense. But before and I do have a little to say about this movie. Before I go after it, what were your thoughts on this one? What's your history with this one?
Yeah, I can't remember if I tried to watch this back when, about 10 years ago when it came out. So I'm going to consider the viewing that I had recently as my first time watch. And yeah, I got some mixed feelings towards it. I mean, it is, like you said, it's got an interesting plot. I guess the problem for me is that because some of the characters and certain events happening throughout the film didn't excite me enough to really intrigue me enough to get invested into the plot. So I'm kind of looking at it more on the surface. Yes, we see this time loop thing going on, a lot of things reoccurring, almost to the point where I feel like I'm watching the movie over and over again. I'm kind of watching the same mediocre thing happen over and over again with slightly different things happening throughout. And then there's kind of like the twist reveal at the end, which I was kind of like, whatever.
Yeah, I wasn't very impressed with the way they concluded this. I mean, I feel like a lot of what they were going for, you could sort of see coming. Like, the whole, it's not uncommon that movies like this have to do with purgatory in some way or another, which may or may not be what this movie is talking about. But it's not like it's a deep surprise to me. Like, the whole conversation at the end with the taxi driver. Like, I guess one of my issues with this, when you get to a time loop type thing, the characters sort of, so some of these characters get killed and then it doesn't matter because another version of them is still alive and they're just getting onto the ship. So, because of that, when a character dies, I mean, they're still alive in another form, so does it really matter? It's really hard to have any type of emotional impact. I mean, if you know they're going to be okay in some form, who cares? Which is actually not too different from, there's a series called Cube, and the second Cube movie deals a little bit with multiple dimension type things, which was a similar complaint I had for that movie. But I mean, this movie is interesting. I'm not going to say that the answers aren't there. I mean, I was just looking online before we started recording, and I found a pretty interesting looking diagram of the events in the movie with points of view and such. So I mean, you can definitely watch this movie, and if you're looking for like a really deep, I guess, intellectual experience, you might be okay. But I guess one of my main complaints is this. If the woman realizes, the main character realizes she's in a time loop, and I think she does past a certain point, because she's seen the same things happen, I think 2 or 3 times by that point, and she tries to change things, but even when she changes things, the same things happen. If she knows she's in a time loop, then obviously she can't break out of the time loop, or else she would be in a time loop to begin with. And that's a common, I don't know if it's a complaint, but I guess a critique about time travel. And I think time travel is a very interesting thing when it comes to horror movies. There's not that many horror movies that deal with time type stuff, and some movies make it work. I'm not sure, Chuck, if you've seen I think it's a Mexican movie, a Spanish movie, titled Time Crimes, which came out, I think, 2007. And it's also sort of a 1 hour back in time type movie. I think it's actually a pretty decent movie. But this one, I think, was just, I don't know, too complex. Like, there were two different versions of the main character. We only follow one of them, maybe, but it's not clear cut. And that just, I'll be honest, it frustrated me. And I went into this one hoping to like it more than I did the first time I saw it, but I was not that lucky.
Even though I'm somewhat familiar with Time Crimes, I don't think I've fully given it a proper watch, but I do know that it's, at least with some of the cover art, it's got like a similar type, someone wearing some sort of mask type thing in it, similar to this.
And I will say, I did read that some people thought that this movie trying was sort of ripping off Time Crimes, which is not the case. Apparently the scripts were being written around the same time, so I'm not, so I just want to make clear, I don't think this is trying to capitalize off Time Crimes, but I do think Time Crimes, while not an amazing movie, I think it dealt with the subject matter a lot better than this one did. I mean, and that's sad, like, this movie it's not terrible. It might not be the most exciting stuff. I think I sort of agree with you that this, I was poured in that while. I mean, I really liked the scene in which the freak storm comes down and they're trying to save their ship. I mean, that was sort of cool, but most of the characters, I mean, were either blonde, bitchy, or like, who cares? And there wasn't much in this movie. I mean, it looked nice, but otherwise, I don't think there's much in this movie going for it. It's a really nice poster, though, so.
I mean, the look of the supposed masked killer in the movie is also interesting, I guess, if you're into it for that type of thing. Being slasher fans and seeing things of that nature in a lot of horror movies.
Yeah, I guess the unfortunate thing is, I think shotgun was used a lot more than an axe was in this, and it's just disappointing.
Yeah.
I don't know, this movie, I feel like, and like I said, I think we're slightly in the minority, because many of the reviews I see for this one are decently positive. And it has a pretty good rating, a pretty fair rating on IMDb. I think it's a 6.9 right now, with almost 100,000 ratings, which it's decently impressive. But I just can't find myself caring that much. I'm not sure what the movie could have done that would gain my respect more, but they just were not able to do it.
It needed some nude scenes and...
I wondered. I mean, there were a few times when the main character, when she was looking decently attractive, shall we say?
Well, the funny thing is, who is it? Melissa George? Is that
yes?
her?
Yeah.
I watched her for years on a Australian soap opera growing up that my family would watch, so I'm kind of used to seeing her really young from that show, and so now just seeing her in anything is just a bit weird. But I think I can't remember what else I saw her in, but she was in a few other movies.
I do think she was in the Amityville horror remake.
Yeah, that's probably the big one, yeah.
I mean, and she did fine in this. I mean, she was okay. It's just the story wasn't great.
Yeah.
So I'll just simply reiterate. I think the movie had potential. I think the story is interesting. I just don't think it was done particularly well. I would have liked a little more detail, a little more explanation, a little more something. But I was just frustrated and somewhat disappointed with rewatching this. So I'm going to... I had to think about this for a little. I'm going to throw it a 5.5. And I think I am going to round that up to a 6 out of 10. Which is still below average, but it's not like I hate the movie. I really think it could have been better. And I just don't think it's not like it's the greatest movie of the 2000s.
I'm tossing up between a 5 and a 6 out of 10 for myself as well. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, and I'll go with 6, because I feel like I do need to give it another watch, another chance, and I feel like it's ceiling for me. If I rewatch and actually really enjoy it the next times, it would be a 7. But I don't hold out hope on enjoying it much more than I did the first time, so I'll be nice enough to give it a 6, and we'll see what happens next time.